that they consistently do well. So I really wanted to focus on those who have been ranked for a couple seasons at least, a few seasons, and who are consistently placing.
Can I just follow up on two?
Yeah.
So on the first question I was asked, looking at kind of circadian rhythms, do you take into account time differences in travel?
I didn't take that into account like explicitly, I guess. I did not write it down. But every tournament does start at the same time, so they start at 7 a.m. And so I thought that comparatively that would work out. But yes, with traveling, that is also a little bit of an outside factor that when you're working with, when you're not working in a lab, that you see affects all of the, perhaps some of the data.
You may not know the answer to this, but do you know if any of the athletes that were tested were dealing with injuries at any point during the tournaments, or if they were injured in any of the bouts, or like compromising their health that way, because that could also affect
Yeah, that would
stress.
be quite a stressor. No, none of them were injured. They were all, like, at least health-wise on the outside, they were fencing just fine. They weren't hurt.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, well, first of all, okay, I'm wondering if you saw some, like a correlation between the fluctuations with the participants' baseline cortisol level, or that first sample that you took, with their, like, how they fluctuated throughout the tournament, and especially towards the end. And also I just want to clarify that you actually did get all 4 of the national team for women's épée and all of the members of the former Olympic team that are still competing, correct?
Thanks. Yes, I did. So you're asking how that first initial sample correlated with the rest?
Yeah, if you see a fluctuation, like if someone has a really low baseline sample, if their cortisol level kind of stays low throughout the day, or if there's a really high baseline level, if they also stay high, or if there's no real correlation.
Right, so on these bars, I did put the variance so that we can try to quantify it that way. But I really didn't see that much of a correlation, I guess. There was one participant who, she stayed like very level throughout, and so her initial sample compared with all of her other samples were very close. So yeah, I haven't seen, I guess, that trend. Yeah.
So one of the things about doing science is that when you get to the end, you realize all the things that you wish you'd known when you started.
Totally.
If you were going to redesign the study, like you could rewind 18 months, 2 years,
Yeah.
How would you do it differently now, having been through the process?
So, oh man, there are a couple things. One, I think what would have made my data a little bit stronger is having more participants, or at least if I wasn't able to have more participants, to be able to have them, I don't know if you can have people in a contract, but if they could be at all 3 tournaments instead of not being sure if they're going to all 3, that would be amazing. And I think it would make my findings a little bit more concrete, or not findings, you know. And another thing would be to have the surveys filled out, because I did think that my questions on the survey would have helped me a little bit to get background knowledge on who the athlete was. But most importantly, I think to have one-on-ones with the athletes before the tournament and after the tournament, and see, one, how do they feel about stress, and how do they encounter stress in their daily lives, and then afterwards to see if they felt stressed out at any point during the tournament, and to see psychologically how stress would affect them, so that I can see comparisons between the physiological numbers that I'm getting and the psychological response they're having.
So how would you get them to do the surveys? Do you have an idea about what would make them, because you can't, it's like there's that ideal world, and then there's
right.
How would you actually make it work in practice?
One, I could probably be a little bit tougher on them. When people lose in fencing, they get really upset and they storm out. But most of these participants I know, so I probably could have harassed them a little bit more. But also, if there was some kind of incentive to where if you complete all 3 tournaments and all 3 surveys, then either incentive for a gift card or a raffle that they could win a gift card, or maybe even like a fencing blade of their choice, you know, like that's pretty big incentive because those are hundreds of dollars. So if I had more funding, that would have been awesome too to do. Yeah.
Did the participants receive their results?
They have not known. So,
Is this something that they would be, like, as an athlete, would you be interested in, you know, knowing your baseline, knowing your resting, and then
Yeah.
seeing how each, you know, making that correlation between each round and what occurred in your mind as
Yeah.
a participant to all of those, you know, because
Right.
whatever happened between 4 and 5 in December was interesting, so.
yeah, and I would have to go through my IRB paperwork because there might be a stipulation that I'm not allowed to tell them who they are.
Well, I mean, because you're supposed to do the analysis totally
Totally blind,
and
yeah.
keep the names separate from the, you know, results. I think it did come out though, you know, that
Yeah,
they could individually.
Individually
But it
see them.
was not to, you know, you had to do it where it's totally separate, so
Right.
it didn't impair your interpretation of your results.
Make this a side business.
well, at the fencing tournaments, I had parents coming up like, how can I test my child for cortisol levels? And I'm like, well, like this is for school, and I don't really have approval, so I can't. But yeah, it could totally be a side business.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
And you have people from other sports, like that UFC fighter that's like, yeah, I want to fly her out in December so she can test my cortisol
Yeah,
levels.
I need to like look into that, and see how if I'm allowed to do that. But
You'd have to have an amendment to your.
yeah, yeah. Yes, Natalie.
Have you gone through and matched up the participants with who they were? And if you did, do you know, like based on, since you are in the fencing community, like does what you've seen on the charts kind of match up with their outward disposition and how you know like their personalities as a person?
It had to be a blind study, so I can't analyze it and look at the results without being biased and knowing who they are. So I haven't looked at the names and like who the participants belong to. Yeah. Kind of wanted to finish my research before like maybe throw the pool.
Alright, well, thanks for everyone coming. The way that the committee usually has to work is then, let's see, first everyone leaves and we